And so anyway, uh, lost my spot here. So anyway, okay, going to church and everything. Well, anyway, that was a heart-wrenching experience right there, you know. I still love my wife. I cared for my wife. I mean, if you're together with someone for 22 and a half years, you got 4 kids together, it's not easy just to say, oh, I don't care. You know, it's not that easy. And you're like, but, you know, that's my family. We had all these confirmations of my daughter being born on our anniversary and born on the same time. And there's just so many things. It was like, you know, what do I do here, Lord? You know, because I'm confused. And but I cared about my girlfriend too. I cared about her, and she was, you know, she was an honest, she's a solid person, I guess you'd say, solid, mature, independent person. And so anyway, I was very happy with her. I was at peace and all that. But anyway, I felt like when I read my Bible and I studied it and I was asking God, please help me with this, Lord. I don't understand what to do. And I felt like it was my responsibility, because it says, you know, God hates divorce. And so it felt like it was my responsibility to do the right thing. And the right thing is to keep my family together and to be there for my wife and my kids. Even though, you know, everything that had happened, I just kept thinking back to forgiveness, because, you know, that's God. Forgiveness is the key to everything, because that's the whole reason we're even going to be able to go is forgiveness, you know. And if he hadn't died on that cross, you know, we wouldn't be going. But it says in there, you know, if you don't forgive your neighbor, God won't forgive you. And so that stuck with me ever since I was a kid. So if somebody come to me and said, I'm sorry, and, you know, wanted to work out, whatever it might be, a friend or whatever, I was quick to say, okay, yeah, that sounds good, no big deal, you know, quick to forgive, you know. And so with that situation, I was like put in a bad position. I put myself in a bad position. And so anyway, and then the other thing was I missed my kids. I hadn't seen my kids in 6 months at that time. Not seen them at all. It's 6 months, you know. And so I missed 6 months of their life right then. And I was actually happy and felt truly loved for the first time, you know, during that time. And I felt like I was going to be selfish. I was going to be selfish if I chose my girlfriend, you know. But I kept hearing that verse about being responsible and taking care of your household and stuff. And so, you know, this verse kept hitting me. What does it profit a man if you gain the whole world but lose your soul? And so I'm wrestling with all this, you know, what's the right thing to do? And I was digging in the Word at that time, trying to understand what was the best decision in God's eyes, you know. And so I had pretty much paradise. Everything was great, you know, no stress and all that stuff. And then responsibility, and I had, you know, peace. And then I had struggles and stress, and it was like trying to weigh this out, you know. Anyway, I was digging down deep in my heart, trying to asking the Lord to please help me with all this. So let's see how this goes. Y'all, I promise this is all for a reason. So anyway, so we decided we was going to try to work it out. So I went ahead and told my girlfriend, you know, I'm going to try to work it out. And that was so rough. You know, we discussed it or whatever, and, you know, broke her heart and broke mine too, to know that I broke her heart and she didn't do a thing wrong, you know, as far as, you know, because we hadn't talked in a year whenever they started up. And she had left for a month or so. And so, you know, anyway, it just felt like, you know, I was doing her wrong, but I didn't know what else to do. And so my wife filed for a motion to drop the restraining order so that we could start seeing each other and all that. And they said we had to see the judge to get it dropped. We were together for about 2 weeks, and then I started feeling like it was just a money thing. It was just, my wife just wanted me there to provide things for her. It wasn't that she wanted me there because she wanted to love me and be there for me. And so it went down real quick. We were downhill real quick. In 2 weeks, we stopped really talking much. And then after that third week, we decided, both decided, this is not going anywhere. We still love each other, but we don't want to stay together or whatever, So we went our separate ways. And court date, we went to June 23rd. Well, the judge said, my lawyer said, his wife filed to have it dropped, and he said, denied. And he said, well, she signed it. She's the one that wanted it to drop. He said, I said denied. We're not dropping this. And my lawyer looked at me and he said, I've never seen that before. And I said, I don't know. So anyway, so they didn't drop their restraining order, so I still couldn't see my kids. And they just kept putting it off and putting it off. And so I went back to my girlfriend. And this went on for a while. Goes with my girlfriend, we'd go for a little while, but she would remember that I got back with my wife. And then I go to my wife, this has happened twice. And I went back to my wife for another 12 days, and we tried to work it out again, and thought we were going to work it out, and then 12 days later, it was like, no, it ain't going to work. It's the same old stuff. I'm just being used. And so it was just, it's like so confusing, okay? And so this struggle of what to do, what's the right thing to do, and trying to work it out with them, but they constantly bring up my past, and I try to work it out with them, and then they constantly bring up, well, you went back to her, well, you went back to her. And it's like, I know that, but I just want to move forward. Whichever way it goes, I just want to move forward. But every time that I thought we were moving forward, it would start going the other way, every time. And so that just kept going over and over again. I'm going to jump a little bit ahead here. Let's see, where are we at? So anyway, I went to counselors. My kids the judge signed. We got a new judge, all this stuff, and the judge said this judge wasn't biased, and she went on one side, and the other one was. And she said, I want the kids to go to counseling. Well, I want to get to the bottom of it because this is a touchy situation. Your son's autistic. He can't speak for himself. The daughter said they don't want to have visitation with you. And I know you want to have visitation with your son, but we gotta go through the counselor to make sure that that's safe and that's okay to do because he can't speak for himself. So I understood where they were coming from, but I was like, I got to have supervised visits and all that stuff. So we're talking a little over 2 years now of all this, and finally I get to start seeing my son. And I see him at the counselor's office, and that goes great. I wear a body camera so that I got proof, and then we do that for a while. Then the judge says, "Hey, we're gonna wrap this thing up so you can start seeing your son every Sunday, 4 hours a day, until we have this next court date. We're gonna finish this up." And I was like, "Good deal." So anyway, we're supposed to finish up in April. It gets postponed. Supposed to finish up in May. It gets postponed. And it's supposed to be this coming Wednesday is the next court date. And who knows what's going to happen. But anyway, let me get to that part. So the key to all this is started changing. This is when it really started changing. I guess it all started changing. It was changing the whole time. But I dedicated my life to the Lord. I said, you know what, Lord? I want you to use me. I'm tired of this world. I'm tired of this life. I want something different. I can't handle this anymore. So there was one point there where the judge told me, pretty much they just postponed it again, and it just broke my heart because I thought, I'm never going to get to see my kids. I want to see my son. Of all of them, I want to see my son. because, you know, there's no animosity there. The autistic kid does not have any malice in their heart. You know, they don't pick sides. They're just happy and they just do their thing, you know. And I wanted to see my son, and it just killed me that I couldn't see him. And I've done this 2 years of his life. 2 years. From 8 years old to 10, I didn't get to see my son. And so that was so hard. But it was like when I got my truck, I pretty much told Lord, I said, Lord, I don't understand. I don't understand why this just don't end, why I can't see my kids. I said, help me. I don't get it. I don't understand all this. And then, you know, I mean, I felt like I was going to give up. I think I told my mom, I felt like I was going to give up. You know, I can't win. And then the Lord told me, you know, I've never heard the Lord's voice. Whenever I say the Lord told me, it's just something inside me that I feel like He's showing me. Because I've never heard that voice. But it was like He said, I want you to go to that counselor's office, and I want you to go as yourself to get counseling for yourself. And He said, the same building. He said, if you see the same counselor, that's great. And so I tried it. And they said, well, we can't do the same counselor because they're seeing your son. And I said, okay. I said, but I want another counselor. Y'all have more? She said, yeah, we have another counselor you can talk to. I said, okay, I want to see that person. And they said, okay. So I went and saw that counselor, and she started, we started discussing everything, and she seen it right off the bat. She said, I see all of it. I see what's going on. And I said, well, I need help. I said, so far everything's been one-sided. I can't get nowhere. You know, the judge don't want to even listen to what I got to say. And she said, well, I'll help you the best I can. She said, but, you know, I've got to give a report, and it's got to be the truth. And she said, that's all I can go by is that. And I said, hey, you know, whatever you can do to write me a note or whatever to say that I'm not this monster that I've been created to be. Because they convinced the whole judges and everybody that I was just this horrible, abusive person, you know. And I'm like, I'm not any of that. I've never been that. I've never been arrested. I've never done anything like that. And so anyway, I asked my lawyer to request a counselor give a statement. She did, and present it to the judge. And that's when things started going different. So I just wanted to point it out that I was begging the Lord to help me. And he gave me that little thing to do. And so I did it. And it helped me. And I thought, wow, thank you, Lord, you know. Thank you. I mean, it didn't seem like I was going to get anywhere very far, but it was like, you know, I could see a difference. And I was like, okay. So anyway, where are we at? So through all this turmoil and all this stuff that I've been trying to understand, you know, ups and downs, and struggling with all of it, and I forgot to mention that, but I had told the Lord, I said, Lord, I know that there's one thing that I'm doing wrong that I know I can fix. I don't want to fix it, but I know I can fix it. And I said, it's going to be very hard for me to do, but I know that I'm not living right as far as the intimacy part of it. And I said, I want to fix that. And so, and the girlfriend, when we were dating off and on, when we were together off and on, we agreed. And she actually suggested that before we even started dating. She said, you know, the best way to do this is just not to ever do that until we're married. Of course, you know, but, I've never done that. So I didn't do that when I was a kid. You know, I started early, 15 years old. So that was like a very hard challenge for me to try to accomplish that at my age. Mm-hmm. And I thought, man, that's going to be so hard. But in January, I committed to that, and I said, okay, I'm not going to do that until I get remarried. And so I haven't. And so I'm just telling you this to tell you that I'm submitting everything that I can to the Lord. I'm surrendering everything I can that I know that I'm doing wrong. I'm trying my best to walk the straightest road that I can walk. And you know, as soon as I feel like I did something wrong, I apologize for it, or I say, Lord, you know, help me with that, or whatever. But I'm trying to eliminate every ounce of sin that I can think of that's in my life. Everything. I haven't listened to any other music besides Christian music for years now. And movies, I don't watch movies, and except to make that Chosen movie. I love that Chosen movie. I hope y'all watch that. And it's some good stuff. But anyway, it just brings Jesus to life. It's like, you know, you can see him. It's like he's the real deal. And anyway, I just focus on watching preachers and teachers and listening to y'all teach and preach and trying to absorb it all. I mean, I'm not just sitting in here staring at the walls. I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to understand it. I'm trying to get it in here, you know. And anyway, it's something that the Lord told me. He said, I want you to start saying the Lord's Prayer every day. Say the Lord's Prayer. And I thought, well, okay, I'll start doing that. So I started praying the Lord's Prayer every day, and you know, what I got out of that was He's saying, not your will be done, but my will be done. That's what I keep getting out of that, you know. So I said, okay, Lord, you know, I'm yours. You direct me the path I need to go. That's what I want to do, you know, because you know I just feel lost. You know, I feel lost about everything, you know. And this is one of them. He said, God said to me, he said, that's how Jesus feels. He gives you 100%, but you don't give him 100%. You know how you had it with your girlfriend and your wife. You try. You was giving your all, but they couldn't give their all. You know how that felt. To try, and it hurt whenever they would be cold and say, you know, well, this is what you got to me, so, you know, back off, whatever. And that feeling. And he was like, that's the way Jesus feels. Because you don't give him 100% of your heart. And I thought, wow. He said, I'm faithful and just, and you aren't. You are not. And he said, you should be protecting your eyes and ears from sin coming into the things you watch and hear. And I said, yes, Lord. And he said, do you see all these things that you had trouble with? How I had them wrote in the Bible for you to follow. I said, yes, Lord. He said, all the directions were in there. Yes, Lord. All his principles and laws, that was all guides to help you to live your life, and you didn't look and you didn't find it. You just did it your way. And he said that you would avoid a lot of pain and suffering. And I said, yes, Lord. And he said, this is what God. He said, I orchestrated every second of your life. He said, Satan is trying his best to trip you up, to keep you confused, to keep you in shame, keep you in guilt from your past. He said, every choice you make, God is constantly rearranging your puzzle. And he said, so that you can find Jesus. It's like a game of chess, except you are the one moving either towards me or towards Satan by the decisions you make in your life. And he said, each time you make a choice, good or bad, Satan adjusts his strategies to try to take you out. And God adjusts his plan to try to help you save yourself. But in the end, it's your choices that determines your fate. That's why it's called free will. You can willingly choose to follow Jesus Christ and His Word, or you can willfully follow the world and Satan. It's your choice. And this is what blew me away. He said, you're not looking at it right. I wasn't looking at it right. He said, no, you're not looking at it right. He said, I was with you the whole time. And I was like, he said, I sent you to be there for them. I was like, what? So I said, you mean to tell me all this time when I was down on myself and I was struggling with shame and guilt of what I done, the destruction I caused in my life, and I was just focused on getting my life straight, and I can only see it from my side of shame, and you're telling me you sent me to help them? And it just hit me so deep inside my heart. He said, I sent you to love them. He said, you did what you were supposed to do. He said, they rejected your love just like the world rejects my love. He said, I sent you to be a part of their puzzle that they need to find me. He said, a piece of the puzzle that they need to work out their own salvation. He said, I was so focused on my walk with Jesus and trying to do the right thing, I didn't see it, the way he was showing me. And he said, they needed you at that moment. And I was like, wow, I got to rethink my whole life. So I'm sitting there trying to absorb this for 2-3 days here, no sleep. And he showed me, he said, so every single person you see each day, every day of your life, rejoice and be glad. Tell them, I'm glad you are a part of my life. So I'm glad every one of you are a part of my life. He said, even if it's for only a moment, even if you just pass on anywhere in town, anywhere. Because he said, the perfect God Almighty orchestrated every second of your life. He said, so relax. Take a deep breath. Trust God. Study His Word. And know He will work it out. You just have to slowly and deeply study His Word. He said, and work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And I was telling y'all, that stuck with me because it's like, I get it now, Lord. I get it. I understand it. It makes sense to me now. Everything makes sense to me. My whole life makes sense to me now. He told me to bring this through. That's not fair. And so I brought it. Because he gave me all kinds of instructions. It just blew my mind. Y'all, there's some stacks of stuff that I couldn't even do it because I didn't have time. But he said, the people that have sins hidden in them, but you don't know it. It's like y'all didn't know those things were in me, right? Y'all didn't know that was part of my past. All right. Well, he says, you can't see it. He said, well, just the opposite. He said, now, look at the joy and excitement inside of you that you can't hardly contain it. And that trembling and everything. He said, that's something that they can't see, but that's something that I give you. And I was like, what? And it was just so strong the other day. I mean, I called Roger and I was bouncing off the wall. I could not sit straight. This guy just pacing back and forth. And I got on the phone with Roger and I was pumped up even more. And I called Don and I said, Don, I don't know what to do. I said, this is what the Lord gave me. I said, it's going to be the whole different service today. I said, I don't know what to do, but this is what He gave me. And Don said, hey, do it, whatever. And I said, okay. And so I've just been hammered down, And, it's like I'm so excited now because everything makes sense to me. My whole life, everything that's happened to me, and everything that I've done to everybody else, and everything, any person that's been a part of my life for 1 second or 30 years, it all makes sense to me. It's all a piece of the puzzle that I needed to find my salvation, to find me, to make me understand that God is for me. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love people. Love every single person you see. When you see somebody at Walmart or whatever, you smile at them and show them love. You're in the vehicle and you're driving down the road, wave at them, show them love.